O que você vê? Um pálido ponto azul na imensidão do universo? 8 bilhões de pessoas se acotovelando todos os dias? Montanhas, oceanos, praias e rios? Ou então diferentes culturas, experiências, conhecimento e oportunidades? Se esta é a sua resposta, bem-vindo a Grade Up.
Olá pessoal, tudo bem? Prazer mais uma vez estar aqui no nosso Grade Up Talk, sempre com uma grande instituição universitária e grande convidada. Eu sou o Leonardo Trenchi, diretor fundador aqui da Grade Up, uma empresa 100% brasileira que orienta e prepara alunos de todo o Brasil para ingresso nas mais prestigiadas universidades do exterior. Lembrando que a gente também auxilia com programas de high school, programas de graduação integral, programas de graduação sanduíche, mestrado, MBA e também o mestrado jurídico, o famoso LLM. Muito importante aqui para a gente é sempre trazer conhecimento, informações fidedignas para que você possa se candidatar enviando a sua melhor candidatura possível. São 10 anos com alunos de todo o Brasil e, claro, sempre trazendo informações para que esse processo, essa jornada, seja a mais tranquila possível. No nosso Grade Up Talks de hoje, teremos aí a presença da Megan, International Office da University of Leeds, grande instituição britânica, muito bem ranqueada, sempre entre as 100 melhores universidades do mundo e, claro, temos alunos por lá em todos os níveis, graduação, mestrado, MBA. E você, se tiver curtindo, se tiver dúvidas, não deixe de escrever aqui no nosso chat, convidar seus amigos, compartilhar o link desse vídeo para que chegue em um número expressivo de pessoas também com os mesmos planos. Queria agradecer também as escolas, os counselors que estão conosco e podem esclarecer suas dúvidas. Megan, thank you very much for your participation here in our Grade Up Talks. Always a pleasure to have a great institution, but as well, great people taking the opportunity to clarify the path for us, Brazilian students and professionals wishing to study abroad. Thank you very much. Talk a little bit more about your role and the University of Leeds to our audience. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Hi, Leo. Thanks for having us here today. We're very pleased to be here with Grade Up. And hello to everyone watching. So yeah, as you said, my name is Megan Carlisle and I'm the International Officer for Latin America here at the university. So my role specifically is helping students interested in studying an undergraduate degree, a master's, an MBA or a PhD in all of the process right up to when they arrive in Leeds. And sometimes we even get to meet you guys on campus when you come. So that's really nice to see students coming through that journey. So we're kind of your first point of contact for any questions, any advice. And we also travel out to the region to come and meet students. So I'll be out in Brazil in a couple of weeks. Myself, I'm from close to Leeds. This is where I grew up. So hopefully the accent is not too difficult, I don't think, compared to some other parts of the UK. So I really love the city. I moved away for study myself, as is quite common in the UK, but then I came back to live in Leeds and I've been working in the university for 4 years now, I think. So it's been a while. The university, as you said, is a really highly ranked university. So we're always top 100 in the world. We're also part of the Russell Group of prestigious research-focused universities in the UK. And Leeds is a big university. So we're nearly 40,000 students at the moment, one of the biggest universities in the UK, with strengths in lots of different academic subjects and located in a really friendly, kind of vibrant city in the north of England.
Fantastic. Megan, one of the key questions that always we need to answer, how can I choose my university? What are the elements that I need to look at? Either on a website, talk to a member of staff, But what are these elements key to choose the best university for each individual?
Definitely. And it is a really individual process. There isn't a one answer for it's not the same answer for every student because we all have different priorities. So my first piece of advice, if I'm being really honest, is start with the program, not the university. So whether that's an undergraduate program or a master's program, study in the UK is intensive. It can be hard work. You need to make sure that you're studying the right subject for your profile and your goals, your aspirations after you finish your studies. And bear in mind that the same program name can be different at different universities, right? So studying psychology at the University of Leeds, for example, or economics might have a really different focus to the same program at Sheffield or at York or at Manchester, which are all other great universities in the north of England. So that's my first thing. Once you've then got your short list of programs, I'd say other key factors are the environment that you want to be in. So what kind of campus do you want? At Leeds, for example, we're a single campus university, so everything's in one place, and we're super close to the centre of the city. We're just 10 minutes walk. So do you want to be really close to a city? Do you want to be more in the countryside? Those kind of factors. Do you want to be in a big university or a small university? And what kind of facilities are important to you? If you're coming to study science, do you want to make sure we've got a particular lab that you want to access for example, for a research project? And then beyond that, I think it's really important to think about the city that you're located in. So obviously, students might not know too much about cities outside of London, which is probably the same if you ask an English person to talk about Brazilian cities, they'd probably answer Sao Paulo or Rio. But have a look at the other cities as well, because there is life outside of London. And there are sometimes advantages to being in a slightly smaller city. For example, cost is a really important factor. It's often cheaper to be in a different city. And different cities in the UK have different kind of atmospheres. So, for example, again, to talk about Leeds, we're a very student-friendly city. We've got a really big student population and quite a modern city environment. So we were a big industrial centre in the Victorian times and during the Industrial Revolution, and we're now a post-industrial city. So it doesn't look like Hogwarts. It's much more modern, much more cosmopolitan, very multicultural, lots of people from, students, but also citizens from different parts of the world. So thinking about that environment as well after you've started with your academic side.
Fantastic. Mega, as you know, we do provide counseling to students and professionals from all over Brazil. And even in Brazil, obviously, there are so many culture difference, different, universities, different places. As you mentioned, there is life outside Rio and Sao Paulo.
Yeah.
And I believe it's the same, because majority of students, they are always looking for opportunities in London. As you have mentioned quite right, there are so many opportunities outside London, and sometimes it's not in the radar. And it's good that they have mentioned that go first for the program. Look at the syllabus. That's the thing that we always reinforce. You need to be aware, and you need to be motivated. You need to be, happy with your course, the syllabus. If you wish it challenged, if you prefer project, if you prefer dissertation, if you really like research, and you guys are really focused on research. You have a quite good prestige around the world because of the research and the impact you made around the world. And you mentioned about Russell Group as well. Can you clarify what's Russell Group? What research means for you guys? Do you receive money from government? Do you receive money from companies? How does that relate to our students applying to either undergrad and masters? And by the way, Gisela, thank you very much to be with us. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So to talk about the Russell Group firstly, the Russell Group is a group of 24 research-intensive universities in the UK. So it's sometimes compared to the Ivy League in the US, and that's sometimes a helpful way to think about it. If you're looking at any university in the Russell Group, it's going to be a really high quality of education that you're going to receive. So that includes universities like Oxford and Cambridge, Imperial, UCL, but also lots of institutions in the north like Manchester, Leeds, Sheffield, York, Newcastle, Edinburgh in Scotland. So it's a big group of universities. Now, the advantages of that for teaching and for you as a student in your student experience, there's multiple advantages. So firstly, your academic teachers, your professors and the academics teaching you will be experts in their area of study, and they'll be teaching you based on the latest knowledge in the field. So you'll be learning from the experts, right? The people who are leading in the sector. So that's the first thing. Secondly, in terms of facilities, you talked about what that means in terms of funding. Russell Group universities often win much higher levels of funding from research grants. We collaborate with industry. So for example, at Leeds, we have an organisation called Nexus, which has its own building on campus, and that's our link with the corporate world. So it's an entire building and a team, a service dedicated to linking our research with companies and how that can be used in the real world. So that you often see that investment put back into the university. So in terms of facilities, you'll have industry standard kind of labs and facilities, really high quality teaching spaces and libraries. And then the third thing I would say is that there's opportunities for you as a student to engage in the creation of research, especially at postgraduate level. So on our master's programs, typically 1/3 of the credits on a master's is dedicated to a research project. At postgraduate research level, at PhD level, obviously you're almost entirely focused on research. And even at undergraduate level, our students typically complete a research project or thesis in the final year. I've known undergraduate students that have had their work published or who have contributed to work that's then gone on to be published in academic journals. Even if you don't want to go on and work in academia, which isn't for all of us, still that opportunity to contribute to the creation of research will really challenge you in a Russell Group university, and it will develop lots of skills that are also really in demand from industry as well. So I'd say obviously you need to look at your particular university, but if you want a short list of universities in the UK, start with the Russell Group, and you know that those are going to be really high quality institutions that will challenge you to think for yourself, really. That's a really big focus in the UK.
Fantastic. One of the challenges that sometimes we face as well with few students applying to different destinations, Megan, is to understand the advantage of the UK, you know? Mm-hmm. Can you highlight some example? I know, undergrad, majority of them, it's just 3 years of length, so it's not that much. But what else? What can you, share with our students? Think about UK, it must be in the radar of many people.
Yeah, definitely. So first thing is what you said, shorter courses. So a 3-year undergraduate is typical and a 1-year master's. So you're advancing much quicker. You're also at undergraduate level specializing from the beginning. And that's because our high school in the UK is much more specialist. We specialize much earlier. So to give you an example from my situation, I studied modern languages at university. I did French and Spanish, and that was all I studied. Before that, I'd done my A-levels at high school, and I only took 3 subjects at A-level. So we're already focusing in. So if you know what you're interested in and you don't want to have to take a general year with lots of different courses, you just want to get straight into what you're interested in, then that's a really big advantage. We've talked obviously about the quality of education in the UK, which is really high. But I think another real advantage is the kind of diversity of our campuses. So the UK has a really strong tradition of welcoming international students. I always say it's not just going to be you plus loads and loads of British students. You'll be studying alongside students from all over the world. So we're very well prepared to support you. At Leeds, 25% of our students nearly are international. So we'll help you when you come, we'll pick you up from the airport, and then you'll be in that international environment and learning to work with people from different cultures, right? From different backgrounds to yourself. That's a really big advantage. And I've seen students use that as kind of a selling point when they're looking for graduate jobs, is that they've got this international background already under their belt. And then the country itself, right? The UK is a great place to live, I think would be my third thing. We're not like Brazil, we're a really small country. So in terms of exploring, you're in a really good base. You can travel around the UK really easily. And I've seen international students generally make the most of their time in the UK and get to know a lot more of the country than most people from the UK. They tell me they've been to places that I've never been to. You're in a good place to explore Europe as well. We're very close by. So in terms of, and the UK is a fantastic country with beautiful countryside, some really exciting cities, lots of history, culture, museums, sports. If you want to go watch football, you can watch Leeds United in the Premier League still, holding on just about. So in terms of that well-rounded experience, I really think the UK offers that in an almost unique way, I guess. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yourself as a British student and having your experience during your undergrad, do you really think the international student adds to the environment? While UK universities are looking for with so many international students, different than Brazil, we do not have that quantity of international students, which makes our experience, not same, not comparing the quality of teaching and students, but it's different. Yeah. So what does that bring to students, future entrepreneurs, future doctors, future business?
Yeah, and I think business actually is one of the areas where you see that most. So to give you an example from our business courses, for example, take something like the MBA, we carefully manage that cohort of students because we want students from different backgrounds, right? And something that's really valuable in modern business environments is working in what we call cross-cultural teams, right? So being able to work with people who are coming at things from a different perspective and be able to work together effectively to solve problems, to develop new ideas, to improve things. That's such an important skill. So being in that multicultural environment in that sense is a really big advantage. If you're studying something like, for example, politics, right? So we have some really fantastic programs in development studies. So things like global development or conflict, terrorism and insurgency, or conflict and security, peace building, those kind of topics. Looking at that from different perspectives, from different students across the globe is really important. That's how we study that. And I think the UK style of teaching, which is very interactive and very seminar based. So students are often, we don't just give you the answers, we want you to think for yourselves. And that kind of engagement is really enriched by having different people in the room, right? Different nationalities, but also people from different backgrounds in other ways, I think really enriches that experience. From my experience of working with international students, I've found they're generally a really motivated, kind of high-flying bunch as well, right? Let's be honest, it's not 100% easy to come to a different country. Not everyone can do that. It takes a certain amount of dedication. You have to be quite motivated. And when I speak to international students, I'm always struck by how driven they are and how determined they are to succeed. So I think the students that you'll kind of encounter here, you'll find that sort of profile a lot, which is really great.
Fantastic. Megan, and also, can you just highlight Leeds? What is about? Obviously, as I said, London is normally the main place, especially for Brazilians applying. But what they will find there? There will be job opportunities. There will be industry. There will be, some kind of financial place as well with big companies. Is it possible to develop, their own business, entrepreneurs, startups? So can you tell us a little bit more? I'm well aware about Leeds United and the way they're flying every Premier League. Yeah. And obviously, what else they can find also in terms of entertainment,
Yeah, definitely. So to start with, Leeds is technically the third biggest city in the UK, but that's quite small when you compare to a lot of cities in Brazil. So we're looking at a population of about 800,000. But because we're the third biggest city in the UK, we're quite an important regional centre, right? So some students describe us as a mini London, which I'm not sure how I feel about because being a proud northerner. But I think what they mean by that is you have everything that you'd expect from a big city, but without some of the disadvantages, right? So we don't have the same traffic. For example, you're not going to commute for an hour, and it's not as expensive. Generally, it's said that people are friendlier as well in the north of England. I think that's definitely true from my experience. So you have those advantages of having everything that you need, but without having some of the downsides of a really, really big city. In terms of industry, so Leeds has the biggest finance sector in the UK outside of London. So if you're not going to be in London, then you might as well be in Leeds. So some really big firms have got kind of offices here, lots of big multinationals. So like KPMG have an office in Leeds, for example. The other main industries that we have, so there's a really big business industry in the city, and a particular focus recently on digital industry. So we've got lots of like digital marketing agencies popping up in the city. And we have a Leeds Digital Festival every year, which works with a lot of those companies. So that's a real growing sector. And then there's also quite a big media sector. So there's a really important theatre, like the region's most important theatre is in Leeds. We've got our opera company, ballet company, and art galleries. So for students looking at kind of creative industries, performance industries, museums, and those kind of sectors, there are opportunities there. And also Channel 4, which is one of the biggest TV channels in the UK, recently moved their head offices to Leeds as well. The other kind of big sector in the city is the legal sector. So Leeds has the fastest growing legal sector in the country as well. So for students looking for kind of placement opportunities on, if they're studying law, there's lots of opportunities there within the city. What I would say about, particularly compared to London, there are a lot more, obviously London's the capital city, and often students say to me, well, there's lots more job opportunities there. I think what you have to bear in mind of the flip side of that is that there's often also a lot more competition for those jobs. So sometimes going to a slightly smaller city where there's a bit less kind of fierce competition for opportunities, and that opportunity to develop a network a little bit quicker, as a lot of students find their jobs through developing kind of really good professional networks. That's sometimes an advantage of actually being in a slightly smaller city. Yeah,
that's a great tip, and it's just as that kind of stereotype idea that opportunities are just in London, which is not correct, and most of the time. So yes, Leeds well connected with employers, which is fantastic. Megan, we do have a few guests, and again, I'd like to thank you, Gisela. She visited the UK in 2013, always interested as well in master's program, which is fantastic. Gisela, feel free as well to contact one of our counselors straight after this webinar. My colleague Solange will leave our email address and WhatsApp for contact. Yeah. With us as well, Rafael Malta. Thank you very much, Rafael. Always good. He's asking about scholarships, and obviously it's quite common here in Latin, and particularly in Brazil, asking about the scholarship opportunities. He's asking about the deadline, and what he realized is normally the application deadline is shorter than the scholarships. So, Rafael, I can answer that question to you and explaining that in the UK, some programs, some universities will have a deadline for you to apply. Normally, if scholarships are available, yes, the deadlines will be after, because in order for you to accept a scholarship and be offered a scholarship, you must have at least a conditional offer or unconditional offer. So normally very competitive programs have a shorter deadline, so you can apply, you can receive your offer, and based on that, then you can apply for your scholarship. You can either apply after or in parallel. Each university has their own criteria, own process, and you need to follow their guidelines. Is that correct, Megan? And by the way, could you highlight what are the scholarships available for Brazilians? I believe it's the merit one.
Correct, yeah. So we have, they're called international, each faculty calls them something different: international merit, international excellence, something around that. So they're all awarded based on academic merit, which is the most common in the UK. We don't necessarily have the same system of financial aid that would exist in the USA, for example. Typically, scholarships are partial. For our master's programs, they're offered at 25% or 50% of the tuition fee. So that's a really substantial amount. And it's the same as you say, Leo, you apply for the program first, receive your decision, and then you can apply for the scholarship, right? So 50% is a really great kind of tuition fee discount.
It's a fantastic one.
And we're looking for the best students, right? Really good grades. At undergraduate, scholarships tend to be lower, if I'm honest. Getting a really substantial scholarship or a full scholarship for an undergraduate study is quite difficult, but we do have some really generous ones. So off the top of my head, biology, biological sciences, psychology, and business, they all offer undergraduate scholarships of £10,000 or above. So that's really substantial again. My top tip for people looking for scholarships, two pieces of advice. Firstly, start your process, your research really early, right? So typically courses in the UK start in September each year. Some universities also start in January, but the most common start date is in September. I would say start thinking at least 1 year before to give yourself time. As you said, Leo, often the scholarship deadlines can be quite early. So you need to start planning in advance. That's my first piece of advice. And the second thing, apply to all the scholarships that you're eligible for. So apply to Chevening, apply to university scholarships, apply to all the sources of funding that you're eligible for, to maximize kind of your chances of being selected and to find the best funding option for you. It's a big investment, hopefully a worthwhile one. That's why we advise that you do this, because the opportunities that it can give you are really big, but it is a really big investment. So it definitely requires a lot of thought.
Fantastic. It's always good to highlight that, 25%, 50% partial scholarships in the UK and for such a high level university is quite a lot. And if we compare as well universities, especially for masters, Raphael, Gisela, that are with us here, if you compare to some universities in other destinations at the same level, the same ranking, probably you need to invest more, especially and particularly if you are talking about American universities.
100%.
So please bear in mind that it's a great opportunity. And for your understanding as well, we do have a great percentage of students that get partial scholarships. The way Grade Up works, we started to counseling master students around September, and between September and November, we get everything done, everything organized in terms of translation, English courses. So between November and April, that's the gap, that's the window that we reinforce students to be sending their applications. However, there are university programs that the deadline is early February or end of March or end of April. So we need to evaluate, and that's our experience. If you wish to organize yourself and send your application on your own, that's great. But what we provide is counselors well experienced that have studied in the UK, have applied to scholarships and understand what each university is looking for. And
I think that's a really good point. I think to be able to work with someone who can maybe make you aware of opportunities that you wouldn't have found, right? There's a lot of information on university websites. It's sometimes not easy to find what you're looking for. And there might be a really great course for you with a fantastic scholarship opportunity that wasn't even on your list when you did your own research. So working with a counsellor who can really kind of open that side up, as well as breaking everything down and saying, right, this is what you need to do. Here's your timeline. I always recommend students develop a timeline of everything that they need to do so they don't miss any deadlines. I think
and especially, Megan, when we are counseling, talking with professionals, they have other demands, and it's time consuming. Go to the internet and find out. And sometimes even some universities, they do have particular scholarships for Brazilians. And sometimes we do lose the opportunity because of lack of information. And so talking to some experienced counselor really will help, will put you in the best condition. First, to get your offer, and then secondly, to apply to the best scholarship possible. Megan, Rafael has so many questions. Thank you very much, Rafael. He's asking if could be combined different scholarships. I think before you go and talk about the Leeds policy, what you need to bear in mind, Rafael, normally the policy is if you are having different scholarships from the same university, some scholarships will say you cannot combine. However, if you are bringing scholarship from external bodies, foundation, companies, might not be a problem. However, some scholarships may say if you are having external scholarship, you cannot combine with our partial scholarship. So you need to be in mind about the policy and the details of each scholarship. Megan.
No, I would agree. I was going to say exactly the same thing, basically. Yeah, you have to check the conditions of each scholarship. That also applies. Sometimes I get students asking about, can I stay and work in the UK afterwards, which you absolutely can. But it's just bearing in mind any conditions of any scholarships that you've accepted, whether they will allow you to also do that. So it's a case of checking each scholarship. Generally, as well, as just to add to what you were saying, if you've been given a scholarship for tuition fees, which is how we give most of our scholarships, then it can only be used for tuition fees, right? So if you were to get, say, for example, a 50% scholarship from the University of Leeds, but then somebody else gave you a 100% scholarship, you couldn't use that 50% that we'd given you to put towards your living costs, right? So generally scholarships are either dedicated as a tuition fee scholarship or as a maintenance or living cost scholarship, and it's not usually possible to check. To switch the funding for something else, if that makes sense. But yeah, sometimes it is possible to combine, but it's just a case of checking the individual conditions of each scholarship that you apply to, basically.
Fantastic. Rafael, by the way, write down to us what kind of subject area course that you wish to apply if you have started your process. And again, feel free to contact one of our counselors. My colleague Saul will leave our email address and WhatsApp for you to get some further information. Megan, Gisela would like to apply for a master's around media, communication. So, by the way, can you share with us, what are the strengths in terms of departments? What are the most popular courses for Latin and Brazilian students?
Definitely. So it's difficult for Leeds because we're so big. But we have, firstly, business is always popular. So Leeds has a really good business school, which is triple accredited, which is something really important to look for business programs. So that includes international business, human resource management, economics, accounting and finance, marketing and general management programs as well. They've got really interesting programs like consumer analytics and marketing strategy and business analytics, so using data analytics in the field of business, which is something that's really in demand by employers. So that's always popular. Then we have engineering and physical sciences at Leeds. Now that's a huge department and it's a real kind of powerhouse within the UK. So they've got 4 different engineering schools, which are all top 10 in the UK in the main kind of UK rankings.
By the way, Rafael wishes to apply to the mechanical engineering program.
Super, yeah. So we've got a fantastic mechanical engineering department. So they teach mechanical engineering, aerospace and aeronautical engineering. We've got a really cool program at undergraduate and master's level in mechatronics and robotics. So a combination of mechanical, electronic engineering and computer science as well. So that's probably one of the things that we're most famous for, is that kind of engineering and physical sciences STEM subjects, really. And then in other areas, so we've got a top 50 in the world in development studies. So things like global development, politics and international studies. I know those are quite popular with Brazilian students. Gisela mentioned media. So we've got a fantastic school of media and communication, which is, I think, 6th, I'm going to say, but definitely top 10 in the UK as well. So that's always really popular. So programs like international communication, media and communication, film, photography and media. And then just a couple of areas where smaller numbers, but quite interesting and quite niche. So Leeds has a fantastic department for transportation science. It's 12th in the whole world. So for some students from Latin America, that's quite popular. So things like transport planning, transport economics, and they've got really fantastic facilities in the department, like simulators and things like that. So that's a real kind of niche area of research. And food science as well. Food science, agriculture, sustainable production, all those kind of areas were always really well ranked. And just finally, the law school as well. So if you're looking for a master's program in law, we've got a really wide range of LLMs. In things like corporate law, human rights law, business and finance, kind of law-related fields, trade law, lots of different specialisms there. And our law school is top 10 in the UK as well. So it's difficult to give a quick answer because we're not sort of known for one thing. We've got a really wide range of strengths across a lot of areas, but I'd say those are some of the most popular with students from Latin America.
Fantastic. It's just a way to consult and have appropriate information. When you mentioned top 10, law school, obviously great LLM programs. What kind of ranking? How do you guys evaluate that? And, just as a matter of information for all your students as well, Megan.
Yeah, so the main rankings that students look at for global level, students normally use the QS ranking and the Times Higher Education. So those are probably the two kind of most reputable ones. And then there's also the Shanghai global ranking as well. So those are probably the three main ones I'd look at. For the UK specifically, the three main rankings, again, there's the Times, there's the Guardian, and there's the Complete University Guide. So when I'm saying top 10, I'm normally using one of those three, depending on the particular subject. I would say use the rankings as a starting point, not as the final factor in the decision making. I think, like we talked about earlier, the syllabus and the specifics of that program are more important. Rankings can go up and down every year, and some of the metrics that are used are not necessarily that relevant to you as a student. So I would say use them as a starting point, particularly when you're coming from a different country, you don't know the universities, and particularly to look at subject rankings as well, rather than just general institutional rankings, because if it's the best university in the world, but it's got a really low ranking for your subject, you might want to reconsider. But they definitely shouldn't be the only factor in the decision making. I think there are lots of other things that are important as well.
Fantastic. By the way, just a few guests as well, Megan. Rafael Malta, again, motorsport is fantastic in the UK. We do have so many students taking motorsport, either undergrad and master's. So be with us, get in contact after this webinar with one of our counselors. Roberta Hick, thank you very much to get in touch as well. Sport and exercise science, great program in the UK, generally speaking. Obviously, the University of Leeds have great courses as well. One great information for you. Yes, universities do offer internships during their undergrad programs. And Roberta, for your own information as well, is across other departments, other courses as well, engineering, business, sports science. So there are so many opportunities for undergrad students in the UK. Normally, it's not in the radar. And I must tell you, I did sports management in the UK, was fantastic. And one of my colleagues got an internship at Chelsea Football Club for 1 year, got paid. He's still working as a physical trainer into the sports science element and working with high-level athletes around the world. So that gave the opportunity for him to get well paid in different clubs, different national governing bodies for sports. So Megan, any particular tip at least?
I was just going to say, on the football thing, I had some students recently in our faculty in the sports and exercise science program who did a program where they went with Leeds United to China. So they were doing like soccer coaching for school kids in China, and this was part of their placement year on their program, done through Leeds United's academy. So there are those really great opportunities. I think so. Most of our undergraduate courses, like you said, they offer that option to go and work for a full year doing paid work that's relevant to your subjects. It works differently at different universities. At Leeds, it's more like an option, right? So you decide once, you don't need to worry about it when you're applying. Once you're already studying with us, then you can come and you can decide, do I want to take a placement year? And we'll help you to find a placement that's appropriate. We don't just want you to go and make coffee for a year, right? That's not a good experience. It needs to be relevant graduate level work. So I've had a student, for example, I had a Colombian student a couple of years ago who was studying business, international business. She did her placement at Pfizer, who developed one of the COVID vaccines in their marketing department. I've had students go to KPMG, to L'Oreal, to Disney. That was quite a cool placement year that someone did a few years ago. So we've had lots of students go to really big companies, as well as, kind of staying more local in smaller businesses or in startups within Leeds. Some students also take what we call a year in enterprise, which is where you can start your own business instead of going to work. So it's a really great opportunity. We often see that those students perform better when they come back. They do better, get better results in their exams. And they also obviously have better graduate opportunities because they've already got something else on their CV. And quite a lot of students kind of will use the connections that they've developed during their placement year to find jobs. So they might even go back to the same company afterwards. I would definitely recommend it. If you're not up for a full placement or if you're on a master's, then there's lots of other things that the university can do to support you with career development. So things like shorter internships during summer vacations, part-time work while you're studying, opportunity to network with employers, study tours on some of our programs. So it's not just placement year or nothing. There's lots of other support there as well.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. The other day, one of our grade up students, again at the Bristol Group University, he did a summer internship for 2 weeks. Then he got 1 year internship. And today, after his graduation, he's working full-time in the UK, in Oxford, with a big company around engineering. He did electrical, electronic engineering. So yeah, there are opportunities. Roberta, by the way, if you can type, leave us here. If you are a counselor, a mother, you know how we can help you with the best possible opportunity in the UK. And obviously, for your understanding, as Megan mentioned, each university has different policies. What I mean by that, there are courses where the internship is part of the course, is embedded. So you have that opportunity. And what Megan said, in some courses, some universities flexible. So if the student, through the career service, he got an internship, fine, he will do the internship, will take 6 months or 1 year off, and then get back to finish his degree. So each university, each course, different features. Correct, Megan?
Exactly, yeah.
Fantastic. You mentioned about one thing, and that's a curiosity and good for all of us hearing you. How does it work, the admissions process at Leeds? Is it through the academics? There is a team looking at undergrad students. Is it via each department with one person or a team? You know, sometimes we do have great students, and one student get, you know, the offer in 1 week, the other 4 weeks. So it's just to get my head and obviously the information to all of us. How is the process at Leeds?
Yes, definitely. So it can be a bit overwhelming, that process, when you start, but I think often it's not as complicated as students think, particularly from my experience of working with students from Latin America. They often think that it's going to be very difficult, and actually often the admission is hopefully not too difficult, but it can take a little while to get a response. So that's normal. That's not something to worry about. So it's slightly different for undergraduate students and master's students. For undergraduate students, you apply through a central system called UCAS. So you don't apply to the university directly. You send one application to the UK system, and you can apply to up to 5 programs. So normally students choose 5 programs at different institutions. If there are 2 programs at Leeds that you really like, then you can. So it's very fair in that way. We all see the same information about you, right? For masters, you make your application directly to the university through our website. There's no application fee, and everything's done through an online portal. So you send all your documents, you receive your decision online. So it's very straightforward in that sense. There's really nothing to lose by applying, right? In terms of what we're looking for, when we look at applications, it depends a little bit on the program and the level of study, but generally we're looking at your academic grades first. So whether that's your high school grades, your IB grades, your GPA and your undergraduate degree if you're applying for a master's. So we want to see that you're meeting our entry requirements, and that you've got grades, the right grades in the right subjects. By that, I mean, if you want to come and study engineering with us, you'll need really good grades in maths, for example, right? So check those requirements before you apply, because if you're not meeting the basic requirements, then we might not be able to even look at the rest of the application. Once we've looked at your grades and we're happy with that, we'll then look at things like your English language. So all students have to provide evidence of English language proficiency. And then other things like your personal statement. So for undergrad and for masters, you'll be asked to write a personal statement normally. Your CV, particularly for master's students, we might be looking at your work experience. especially for those competitive courses where we've got lots of applications. We want to select the best students. In terms of how long will I wait for a decision? Typically around 6 to 8 weeks for most of our programs, but it can take longer at peak times. If you have a scholarship deadline, so for example, if you're applying for an external scholarship and you need an answer, then always let us know and we'll do our best to make sure you've got your offer letter in time to apply for your scholarship. So don't worry if it takes a little while. There's lots of applications. We're big universities. We get thousands of applications every year. With whole teams dedicated to processing them. So there's hundreds of people working on this across the university. So it is a really big process, which is why it can sometimes take a little while. I think the advantage of working with someone like an international officer is you have a single point of contact. So if you're worried about anything or if you want to know when you should expect a decision, you can always ask someone in my job. And I always say we know a little bit about everything. So we normally will know what the answers are to those kind of questions, or we can help to put you in touch with the people who can answer your questions if we're not able to answer them. So I think even though the university is big, having that one person that you can go to is really helpful.
Fantastic. In terms of that master's scholarship, 25-50%, is there any deadline coming? So at least...
Yeah, so we've had 2 deadlines for that one for most of the programs, and those are in March and May. So we've missed the March one, but if there are any students looking for applying for that scholarship, you only have to have applied to the master's program. You don't actually need the offer letter. So if you applied for the master's program now, we're in April, you would still have time to apply for the scholarship in May. So yeah, that one has 2 rounds to make sure that it's as many students as possible can apply.
Fantastic, Megan. By the way, we left our contact here, so happy to assist any student wishing to apply to 100, top 100 university in the world. We are coming to the end, but a few more questions. Always good to find out if you guys have accommodation, either to undergrad and masters. And obviously, if the student is accepted, pay the deposit, then they get into that process of accommodation. Yeah, Megan?
So we do have lots of student accommodation. I know there are some cities and some universities where accommodation's in really short supply and it's really difficult to find. It's not a problem at Leeds because we guarantee accommodation for international students for the full time that you're studying with us. So that would be your 1 year for your master's, but it would be all 3 years of your undergraduate degree.
That's quite different. That's quite different. Normally, it's just the first year. That's like amazing news. Huh?
So all you have to do is once you've applied for your program and accepted your offer, you then submit your application for accommodation. So it's a separate application, but as long as you apply before our deadline, which is the 1st of July, so it's nice and late for you, you've got plenty of time. As long as you apply before the 1st of July, you're guaranteed a room in university accommodation. You always have your own bedroom. Not many, I think I know of one UK university where they share bedrooms. I know in the US it's really common, but British people like our personal space. So you would always have your own bedroom and then normally a shared kitchen living area with a group of students. So that's quite a good way to make friends. At Leeds, we normally put undergraduate students and postgrad students separately just because you're in different kind of moments of life. So you'll have more in common living with students at the same level of study. And there's a range of different accommodations in terms of, some really modern high-rise buildings right on campus. And then some are more kind of traditional red brick housing a little bit further away from campus, generally within walking distance though. Like I said, we're quite compact. It just depends on what your preferences are and what your budget is as well. So we've got options to suit different budgets. So yeah, really good accommodation here.
Fantastic. What's the minimum wage today in Leeds if the student get a job? Have got an idea, Megan? Obviously, the minimum wage for an hour, in the UK, guys, is by an hour. So normally you get paid by the end of the week.
£10 or £11 a year.
10 or 11. So yes,
a year, an hour, depending on your age. I think in the UK, it's been a while since I was 21, but I think it changes at 18 and then again at 21. But it's around £10 or £11 an hour.
Fantastic. Guys, we are coming to the end. Obviously, there are so many questions, but that's a great opportunity as well to get in contact with Grade Up. And if you are applying to Leeds, please let us know. We're happy to assist you with the application, but even after, there are so many information, details, and we also help you guys with the visa. Student visa, is a bit complex. We do not work with any other company. We do help our own students with the student visa, and it's key to plan. Do take some time to start your process. Even for 2024, please do get in touch if you are wishing to apply. If you are wishing to apply to 23, yes, we are available. It's still time, so do not lose that opportunity. Megan, thank you very much. Any final comment, any final tip for us Brazilians?
Just to echo what you said, really, if you are interested, do get in touch. And also remember that I'll be coming out to Brazil in a couple of weeks. So I'll be in Sao Paulo to attend the Student World exhibitions on the 15th and 16th of April, and then in Curitiba as well to meet all the lovely Grade Up team, and to attend the Curitiba exhibition on the 18th of April. So if you want to meet us in person, then get in touch with Grade Up and we can arrange a chat in person to discuss kind of your personal circumstances in a bit more detail. That's what we're here for.
Fantastic. So again, Megan will be in Brazil next week, end of next week. So there is an opportunity for us to arrange a meeting one-to-one. If you are really serious, if you really want to apply to Leeds, there will be an opportunity to meet Megan in São Paulo. If you want the details, please do send us a WhatsApp Friday afternoon in our office in São Paulo, and then in Curitiba, in our office in Curitiba on the 18th. And maybe 19th as well, but we will see the demand and the timing. So do get in contact with us via WhatsApp to arrange your one-to-one. We're happy to have you and assist with the process. That as well. Thank you very much, Roberta, for the questions. Rafael, Gisela, who else? Nick, Amanda. So again, thank you very much, Megan. See you next week. Have a great time flying to Brazil, and I'm sure we'll have a fantastic time here with school students and professionals applying to Leeds. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye, everyone.
Eu sempre quis estudar fora em algum momento, fazer um intercâmbio, algo assim. Nunca pensei em fazer a graduação inteira fora, nunca pensei em passar tanto tempo fora quanto acabei passando, que realmente me deu essa visão de que era uma realidade, não era só um sonho. Foi um evento da Grade Up.
E eles me apresentaram todas essas possibilidades de várias universidades, eles me deram várias oportunidades assim, de conhecer diferentes universidades. É uma coisa mesmo para se preocupar, realmente é isso. Ele te libera para poder se preocupar com as coisas boas mesmo, né? Com as coisas que realmente importam. Eu sempre recomendo a Grade Up, eu acho que eles conhecerem como é lá fora, não só na teoria aqui, é bem diferente e as opções que eles apresentam pra gente são muitas também, o conhecimento que eles têm é enorme, então eu recomendaria 100%.
Nosso grande foco desde o dia número 1 aqui da empresa foi ensino superior. A gente vende aqui tempo, a gente vende o nosso expertise e as decisões dos alunos, das famílias são importantes. O nosso DNA realmente ele preza muito por isso, pela questão personalizada, pela individualidade, pelo nome das pessoas. O aluno, a família, realmente ela está no centro aqui de todas as atividades. Ao mesmo tempo a gente está falando de educação, então isso está atrelado ao sonho e assim como eu tive, eu quero trazer o que há de melhor. Então nesse trabalho durante esses últimos 10 anos, foi isso que nos trouxe até aqui. Em 10 anos, muita coisa mudou. Contudo, o comprometimento e dedicação da Grade Up continuam os mesmos. Nosso alto índice de aceitação nas principais universidades do mundo só é possível graças ao trabalho de profissionais altamente qualificados que atendem cada aluno de forma personalizada. Para nós, estudantes não são meros números, eles têm nome, sonhos e anseios. Em 10 anos de existência, cada estudante que entra pela nossa porta passa a fazer parte da nossa história. Trilhamos juntos os caminhos que levam ao exterior. Afinal de contas, sonho que se sonha só é só sonho, mas sonho que se sonha junto é realidade. Por mais décadas, como os últimos 10 anos.